How's it going, everybody? My name's Warner Fields, aka Fields of Profit.
And my name's Mike, aka Reezy Resells.
Awesome. Super glad to have Reezy on the channel today. He is actually one of the guys who got me into selling on Amazon. I was watching his videos from a dorm room like over 4 years ago. Learned how to sell used books, went out to the thrift store, and the rest kind of history. A lot of you guys have been able to see that on the channel. You can just see the same thing on Reezy's channel, seeing his whole journey. I just love talking to other guys, documenting their journey and all that. Yeah, just wanted to get the chance to sit down, have a conversation with you. So how, all the way back in the day, how did you actually get into reselling, becoming Reezy Resells, all that?
So I don't want to talk for 45 minutes because that's very easy for me to do. But
Sure, yeah.
I grew up very poor and neglected. I could never ask my parents for any money ever. My parents were divorced anyway, so I guess it was parent. And my home environment wasn't good, so I never wanted to come home when I was out. And so, but you want to get a soda, you want to get a hot dog, you want to whatever. And so I learned different ways to make money. Started in school with selling candy and then selling sodas out of my backpack on the beach. And ultimately, my little brother started selling on eBay, Royce, and he was just sharing it with me. We're super nerds and we're always into the internet. And, we were doing anything we could to make money off the internet, filling out surveys, opting to use browsers that showed banner ads and then running a mouse jiggler script and just leaving the computer alone and then getting checks for $12 every month. And so when eBay came around, my brother started selling anything in the house, in my mom's house. I already was out of the house. I've lived on my own since I was 16. And he was unscrewing his computer case. He had a Gateway computer. It was an all-in-one unit, and he sold the speakers off of it because with his logic, he was like, what do I need speakers for? I wear headphones anyways. And then he took the case off his computer and he was like, someone needs this case, not me, because he just bolted it to a piece of wood and that was his computer. He didn't care. He sold all his old toys, and eventually he sold his Nintendo 64 with all the games, all the controllers, everything, just one big pile. And from that experience, I learned so much. The guy that bought it, his name was video game buyer guy or game dealer dude or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So based off just his name, which is funny, that might be a tip. Hey, you can brand yourself with your name, but you also are kind of giving away the game to other people. You got to figure out which one's more important. So I went and looked at what he sold, and that's when I realized you could see completed sales on other people. You know what I mean? And because I didn't even know about researching on eBay yet. And I was like, oh man, he's selling a controller, a game, a cable, he got us. Damn, we could have made so much more money. Right. And so then we learned about breaking bulk. And after we sold everything in our house, we realized that we could buy lots of stuff off of eBay and then part it out piece by piece, almost anything. This was in the year 2000 or so. And also I was selling bootleg DVDs on Yahoo auctions. So not just bootleg DVDs, but cartoon sets that are culturally relevant that were not available on DVD yet. So they call it a fan set. So back then you couldn't get even the 1980s Ninja Turtles or the early 90s Ninja Turtles on DVD. There was no option at all. So I had downloaded all the episodes off Pirate Bay, learned how to make DVD menus, proper DVDs, with nice artwork and theme music in the background and all kinds of stuff, and made a box set. So when you lined them up, it made a picture and all that. And then we were printing DVDs or putting labels on them at first and then selling them on Yahoo. And there was a whole bunch of, it was really wild. You'd buy from other people who were selling similar stuff and then copy their sets and then sell those back. You know what I mean? So you would, and it's nobody can snitch on you. You know what I mean? But eventually that came to a screeching halt, like most somewhat illegitimate things do. But I learned a ton, and a lot of stuff that I learned from selling drugs when I was a young kid as well applied to that, selling online, just the whole mentality of get stuff people want, don't run out, stay in stock. And I'm a big reader, and so I always read books. I actually was grounded so much in my life that I eventually discovered reading. I'm oh man, there's books in here. What am I gonna do? I'm grounded. Oh, I'm having fun reading. I vividly remember feeling they don't know I'm having fun. I'm reading books.
Meanwhile, the parents are oh, we did it. We got them to read.
Yeah, I don't know, right? So for me, it was Star Wars books, science fiction, since I'm such a nerd, which got me fully enthralled in reading long before I started reading self-help business or nonfiction at all. And after selling everything that I wanted to sell or had to sell, one day I just looked at my shelf of Star Wars books, and I had read every single book in the whole universe up to the year 2000. And I was like, you know what? Let's start these off. And my thing back in the day was I would always start stuff off at a penny. It was just super exciting. And I think back in the day, people would overbid more on stuff because there was less people doing auctions, less opportunity to buy something you were interested in at that time. And it went for 75% of the retail price, a lot of 30 Star Wars books. And I was kind of blown away because I thought it would go for maybe 25% of the price. I don't know why it didn't strike me. I was reading books. I was going to the store and buying them the day they came out for full price, but it didn't strike me to think that used books were desirable or valuable. Certainly not for 75% of MSRP. And so that got stuck in my head, like stored that database away somewhere. And then a few years later, I'm selling on the side on eBay in California and doing what a lot of men do when they get into reselling. I'm doing electronics, video games, the random, starter jersey I come across, just whatever And I would see people scanning books, and I thought they worked at the thrift stores because they had so many books. They didn't work at the thrift stores, and they were using barcode scanners, basically little laser beams. And this was pre-iPhone, pre-YouTube.
Were they using
and I was
PDAs
like,
or whatever it's called?
Yeah,
or?
PDAs, the people that are too young to know, that stands for Personal Digital Assistant. And the model that everyone was using was the Dell Axum X5, which now it was already old at that point. Like it was already something you could pick up for $15. And now I feel like it's maybe like on the mend and it's like worth more now. It's like a collectible, right?
Probably is. Yeah. I remember there was one guy locally when I was doing books. He would go to the bins and he pulled out this old thing. I was using like the Scout IQ app, and I was like, "What are you doing, bro? Like apps exist now. Like we're not still 10 years ago."
Right. Yeah. I mean, they still work, right? It's like, I don't know. I like hardware, even though that is software in there or whatever. It feels more like a hardware type thing. But obviously, it was wild. Your database is corrupted, so you got to have a second SD card with the backup database to go to launch back. Oh, your SD card got corrupted. Cool. Switch it out. You know what I mean? And it was really wild. But we got the job done. Even before that, there was something called Scout Pal, which we used, which was SMS messages only.
Oh, wow.
So you could send an SMS message to the Scout Pal number with the ISBN, and then it would reply with the sales rank and the 3 lowest prices.
That's crazy. Was it like instant, or like how'd that work?
It took like, 30 seconds or so.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but it wasn't like, it's certainly not helping you at a library sale so much. Back then you had to have your feelers, you know what I mean? The old gray. That's why the guys with the old gray hairs, the book wizards, that's why they hate us so much, because their knowledge doesn't really apply anymore, except for the books that like have no barcodes at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they still get us. We all go in the library sale at the same time. We're going for the textbooks or the science section or whatever we're going for. Definitely some high value nonfiction, but they're going for like the vintage looking books. Then they like pick them all up and then they're like laughing at us like, aha, these idiot kids, they don't know nothing. You know what I mean? But they used to be able to make a lot of money on, just regular books, whether they just took them to the bookstore and didn't even sell online or whatever. But ultimately, I started doing research trying to figure out like, how are they doing this? Like book scanning, book scanners or whatever. You don't think book scouting, like that doesn't just pop into your head, And so when you Google book scanners, all that comes up is like Hackaday articles on how to like make your own book digitizing setup, right? And so you're like, this is not what I want. Thanks for nothing. And I resulted to just brute force asking people. And eventually I seen a lady scanning books who I had never seen. And I was blind buying books every day at that point already and still doing well enough to actually make money. I didn't quit my job yet, but we were buying them for $5 a bag from the Goodwill outlet. So it wasn't super risky. There would always be 1 or 2 books that at least made the $5 back plus some profit.
Yeah, a good bag. Yeah, especially back when books was less competition. Like that's easy money.
Right. And I'm like looking at them like, this one, sure. This one, I don't know. Like I had no rhyme or reason to it. I think I was mostly just looking by like how nice it looked and how old it was or wasn't, depending on the topic. But anyways, this woman who I had never seen before, she just spilled the beans and she was like, oh, here's the name of the app. Here's what I'm doing. And I was like, thank you. You're a saint. And I ran all the way home, looked it up, found their website, and the rest was pretty much history from there. I was like, oh, they're, I had already learned they were selling on Amazon, but had no idea about pricing. But in the first year of selling on Amazon, I sold well over $100,000 of books and filled my entire house with like so many books that you would come. It wasn't a house, it was a 2-bedroom apartment upstairs, and the floors were like sagging.
Them upstairs?
Oh yeah, the floors were sagging down dangerously. The mailman hated me because he had to come upstairs to get our outgoing mail. This was pre-FBA, so it was all merchant fulfilled. But yeah, you would walk into my house and you'd just be like, what's up with all the books? You know what I mean? Like if you'd never been in my house before, you'd be like, dude, what's up with all the books? And then I'd have to tell you,
That's funny. Yeah, one of my uncle way back in the day was the same way. Pre-FBA, he was selling books from his house. We all thought he was crazy, but he just had a ton of books sitting around and he knew about it before we did. So if only he had kept going, I suppose, right?
Yeah, it was very wild times back then. And so I definitely I hate to use the word lucky because I find that there's not really such a thing as luck, but it's like, oh, people who, work hard and plan and, strategize, they seem to just keep getting lucky.
Yeah, I
seem
you
to
can
keep
put
getting
yourself.
lucky, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, but the reality is sometimes you position yourself and it doesn't go your way or whatever. So there
Mhm.
is still an amount of luck to it. And it was the year FBA started. And so
Oh, yep,
when the
yep.
Amazon sent out the email saying, hey guys, like our pilot program's over, anybody can send books to FBA now, most people, at least my competition, they must have missed that email and they didn't pay attention. And so what I realized, that the first thing I realized was that almost any book that had a good rank but was a penny book, I
Mhm.
could now make $1.35 selling it for $4 FBA. So
Oh,
any book that had a rank of 100,000 or less and was less than £1, regardless of the price, I was sending it to FBA and selling it for $4, and the payout would still be $1.35. And then that turned into, going to the bins every day, the Goodwill outlet, and normally I would get 2 to 5 bags of books on a really good day. Say some of the competition didn't show up, but now I
mhm.
was leaving with like 20 bags of books every day, and they were hounding me like, what do you know that we don't know, and now I was the guy that was clamming up. And eventually it was like looking at textbooks that they threw back that were still worth $5 or $6, but it's also £5 or £6. So merchant fulfilled, that's not very exciting and probably
Right.
maybe even
Yeah.
a loss. But it just clicked in my head and I was like, well, what's the FBA price? And I'm like, oh, it's 18, it's 22,
Mhm.
like maybe it will sell. And then it starts selling. And then like it gets to the point where I'm sending in textbooks that are penny textbooks, but I'm selling them for $40 FBA. And like, each little click happened like one step at a time. Then I was like, well, I could buy books off FBA or off of merchant fulfilled and then send them in FBA and capitalize on the arbitrage like that,
Yeah, yeah.
and just step by step, you make all the mistakes, and then like one day you're pricing books and you're like, oh, this book, the lowest price, $12. I'm going to price it for $12. But then you're like, but wait, the third price is $42 and the new price is $80. Why am I going to sell this for 12? I'm going to buy these other 3 copies for 13 and 22. And then when those show up, all of them are going to be $40. You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
the
yeah.
data supports it or whatever. So it was just a long journey of making a lot of mistakes and figuring everything out step by step, developing routes, getting friends and family to help so that we could scale it out. And yeah, I did 15 years full time selling used books, 100% cherry picking without having a warehouse or anything.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's a journey, right? And I like what you're talking about, where it's like, I got lucky, right? But you were doing it for years and years. And when you keep giving yourself at bats, eventually you're going to hit a home run. And clearly it kind of paid off, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Just
like, at what point during that journey, when you're getting into cherry picking and all that kind of stuff, when did you start, documenting the journey? Because you're talking like, oh, she spilled the beans. Like, I ate her lunch because she spilled the beans. Like, where was that mindset shift for you?
right.
And when
Well,
did you?
she was from out of town. So I think that might
Gotcha.
have contributed to that,
Okay.
why she didn't care so much or whatever. Thank you, Phyllis, by the way, if you're watching. I later met her.
That's
But
awesome.
what turns out is one day I found a copy of Crush It by Gary Vee, Gary Vaynerchuk, the man, the legend. And I scanned it and it wasn't worth any money, right? But the title was intriguing. Crush It, how to cash in on your passions with social media. And it was green and black. And so I was like, well, who calls it their book Crush It? This guy must be like at least a youthful spirit. Like he seems kind of cool just off the title.
Sure.
I didn't know who Gary Vee was. And it was green and black. So it had kind of like this money vibe to it. And then I turned it over and there's a foreword or a quote on the back of the book from Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos, RIP. And it just so happens that I had just finished reading the Zappos book, Delivering Happiness, which I highly recommend anybody to read who, if you like the stories of scrappy companies that came from nothing and made it, like it's a really good story. And that's the funny part about selling books, is that I suddenly had access to books, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you scan a book and it's worth money and you like, well, there's a reason it's worth money. It's probably worth reading. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I read so many books. I still read tons of books, mostly listen to them now. But anyways, so because I knew who the CEO was and I was triggered by a couple other things, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this one for personal and I'm going to read it. I read it all that night. I literally sat down on the toilet and didn't get up until I was finished reading the entire book. It's
That's
not a
awesome.
long book. It's only like 150
Sure.
pages or something like that. There's a smaller book too, size wise. And I was like, in that book, Crush It, everyone should read that book. If you want to do social media and you haven't read Crush It, I don't think you really want to do it, because that book is the complete guideline to everything you need to know. And what I realized was I had always wanted to be a YouTuber, because who doesn't want to? That's like everybody. That's like the modern American dream. I want to be a
Sure.
YouTuber,
I think it is. Like, the most kids in America want to be a YouTuber right now.
It probably more
Yeah.
than like NFL, NBA, MLB, etc., which is kind of weird because anybody can do it. It's so accessible. You know what I mean? And so I realized I'm a skateboarder. I grew up skateboarding and making videos. So when I saw someone like Casey Neistat for the first time, I didn't think like, oh, hail Jesus. Like, you know, to me, it was weird that he was being chased by people like as if he was the Beatles, when really all he does is edit video. I'm not saying Casey's not a cool dude, and I love Casey's videos and he's a great artist, but I felt like I could get you halfway there with fairly minimal effort. And maybe, you know, through practice and effort, maybe 75% of the way there, you know, and I thought I was going to be like a Casey Neistat. I was in a vlog. People were going to love me. After reading Crush It, I was like, you fool. Like, that's not how you were going to do it. Like, you know so much in your head and you're going to share this knowledge. Yep. And that's how you're going to get, you know, acclaim and get people to respect you. And, oh, but what if they put me out of business? Don't worry. They're not going to do it anyways. Most people are not. There's going to be 1 million people that listen to you. There's only going to be 1,000 or 10,000 that actually take any action. Exactly. Out of those, they're not all going to stay in business long-term anyways. And the thing that really got me on it was, guess what? If you decide not to do it, someone else is going to do it anyways, eventually. Yeah. So if you have an opportunity to spill the beans and gain equity with people over it, you should. Like, one of the things in the book he says is like, if you feel like you might be putting yourself out of business with the information that you're sharing, that's a good sign that you should definitely share it, because someone else is going to do it eventually anyways, right? And so why not you? If someone else is going to do it eventually anyways, why not you? Don't you deserve to get that equity? Because that gives you more options in the future to do who knows what. And you never know with the internet, there's so much opportunity, right? So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach people how to sell on Amazon. And at the time, there wasn't really anybody there wasn't any courses that I knew of. Anybody who was doing any information was barely on YouTube, primarily Facebook. They were 55 plus, no disrespect. They were just older dudes. They were probably 100% white. There was probably very minimal females. Nobody could even authentically wear a hat forwards, let alone backwards. You know what I mean? There was nobody that I could relate to. Nobody was funny. Nobody, I was like, none of these guys listen to hip hop. I can't trust them. You know what I mean? Like, which is weird, but it's just like, I know how I feel and what makes me comfortable. And so I had a good feeling that there was an opportunity for some refreshing personality to get in there, you know? And also, people were basically just giving really watered down information and trying to lure people into their group or their whatever it was. You know, I think one of the only persons I remember way back in the day was like, I think it was Steve Rakin. I think when I started getting on social media, Rakin Profit was on already with the Green Room guys. And then like this dude named Jordan Malik, which he doesn't really make content anymore. But I was like, okay, like this could work.
That's like a deep unlocked memory. I think that he had like a Black Friday deal or something that I bought way back in the day.
Right, like a list of all these clearance links or whatever, like 300 links to the direct clearance URL of all these stores.
Yeah, it was something like that. I wasn't even ungated in it, so I bought it and I was like, man, I got scammed. Like,
it's always a scam. Yeah, so I was like, all right, everyone already calls me Reezy. My last name is Resendes and my first name's Mike. So when your name's Mike, you have to have a nickname. So it was usually people were just calling me Resendes, but that Portuguese last name is apparently too hard for a lot of people to say, so it would just became Reezy. Hey, Reezy, and then it's just Reezy, not Mike Reezy. So when I started social media, I was like, Reezy Resells. Okay, alliteration, basic psychology stuff. Let me use that website tool that checks if every social media is available for it. Okay, cool, it's available. Let's go. So that's when I started it, and I started on Facebook before I actually started YouTube. So I made a Facebook group, and then I just started answering questions, helping people. I would go into other people's Facebook groups, and all of the ways that I grew are still completely viable strategies. Like, you can't plug yourself on other people's stuff so much, but you can make your name stand out in a way to where, hey, it's obvious you do this stuff and you teach and you help. And guess what? Even on my stuff, there's so much unanswered questions that I don't have time to get to or that I'm neglecting. Go in there and answer them. As much as I want to be like, God damn it, Warner's sliding up into my shit, answering all my stuff. You know what I mean? Now I'm sliding back into your guys' stuff and answering the stuff you guys aren't answering. You know what I mean? So you can gain equity by answering questions and providing value in other people's content who already have eyes on them, and they can't really hate you because you're helping them and doing their job. And they're certainly not going to just like delete you or block you unless they're evil, maybe. And although I couldn't be like, after I did finally start a YouTube, I'm not going to just like throw my link everywhere on someone else's group because that's just super rude. Right, but it got to the point where people would be like, thanks, do you have a channel or something? And then someone else would post it without me even saying them to post it. Awesome. And so that's kind of how I grew my Facebook. And Facebook was really my main focus, even once I started the YouTube, until after a while it became just too much to keep up with. Now I kind of neglect Facebook a little, but it was just starting over again, making a bunch of mistakes. You know what I mean? I used to post family vlogs on my YouTube channel. It took me a really long time to realize how the algorithm works.
Can't
And to
split
be
the-
like, hey, yeah, put that on the family channel, you know, like I don't know, I felt like I was betraying myself because I like those videos. I make those, we watch them, we remember those memories, you know what I mean? I don't care if they make any money, but you know, when you create something, you obviously want to share it with people, right? But it get to the point where you're like, hey, I'm making good money off this now, and I want to keep making good money off this. I don't want to mess this up, so let's put these over here, right? And that's kind of like the beautiful thing about YouTube is that you can be a new creator or like on your way to being a guru or whatever your plans are, and you don't have to sell anything, and you can make money off YouTube from the ads. Like people don't, you know, like all the ads, like blah, blah, like what? Buy YouTube Premium for $8 or $12 or whatever it is now, and don't look
It's a great
back.
investment.
Yeah, when an ad comes on a YouTube video next to me from someone else's phone, I like get PTSD. I'm like, whoa, ads, bro,
I
chill.
forgot
What are
those existed.
yeah, like what are you, poor? Just buy premium. Jesus Christ, subjecting me to secondhand advertising. This should be illegal. Then I just, you know, just like selling on Amazon for the first time. How do I do this? How do I make all these mistakes? The only difference was like, yo, Reezy, you just started YouTube. How do you do so well? It's like, well, I've been making videos for 20 years before that. You know, I've been making videos since you had to use 2 VCRs to make a video. Before we had nonlinear editing. And when nonlinear editing came out, I was all over it right away. Like when the IMAX came out and Canon GL1, like my high school had some and we were killing it, you know? So definitely have experience with that.
Yeah, again,
And
it's all that luck compounding, like you're talking about. You had that past
Right.
experience because you were trying to do things. It
Yep.
adds up and works out, right? I like what you're talking about in a second with, you know, just being in the communities, you know, interacting, getting your name out there. It's a great place to, because you've seen it, I've seen it. There's so much value in just people knowing your name and being in the community. And
Yep.
like that's an awesome takeaway for you guys watching. Like if you're somebody who wants to be known in the community, you know, be that guy that people want to say, hey, I found this, like go check this lead out, like all that kind of stuff. It compounds being involved in the community, answering those questions. I like that nugget. And
Yeah,
obviously I'll grow your YouTube.
Yeah, the other thing that I didn't realize about sharing with other people, because I was doing it, you know, just to become a YouTuber and make money off that, was that once you get to a certain point and you start helping people, then they, especially the first time someone saw me in public, and I don't know if this was the first time, but I feel like it was. I got stopped by a couple we're in Disneyland with the fam, and they're like, Reezy Resells? And like the wife just starts crying, and they were telling me how the husband had worked a job for like 15 years, truck driver, got a work injury, and then they just canned him and he got no compensation, and they would have been totally screwed, and they have kids and everything, but because of my free content, you know, they were actually doing well enough to survive and on their way to doing better than they were doing when he was working full time, and he was home with the kids and teaching them concepts. And then also later, just a success story, I think the wife ended up quitting her job as well, and they were just doing books all together, and it's like that made me feel super amazing, like an addicting feeling, you know. And that was the first time that I felt like, okay, maybe there's more to this. Like that's like a sense of fulfillment or purpose. Yes, I'm passionate about helping people and I like making content, but to feel like you're actually making the world a better place is really crazy. And I didn't grow up, you know, in a religious family, and my family didn't really have a lot of great values. I was never taught that it's better to give than it is to receive, which I understand is hard when you don't have anything to even take that comment, you know, and think it's real. You know, I was like, yeah, whatever, give me something, I'll tell you how it feels. So from there, I just kind of, you know, like just blossom. I was like, oh man, I started getting fired up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, cool. I'm making a difference, you know, because I don't know if it's just me, but I always, you know, I'd be in school reading history books or whatever. And you're like, I'm going to be in one of those books one day. You know what I mean? And so that was the first time where I felt like, wow, like this is how I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? This is how I'm going to make a difference. And I was like, I'm not too sure how the money is going to work out, but I think it's going to work out. Let me just slam this and see, you know, how many people I can help.
That's awesome. Do you remember what, you know, like that initial traction? Do you remember, did it start slow? I know a lot of people like they grind content and it's not getting anywhere and they give up, right? Was it the same for you?
It was extremely slow. So most people would have given up for sure. So it was the first year I did 100 videos. I made $1,800. The second year I did 100 videos. I made, I think 5,000 or 8,000. I want to say 5,000. And the third year I did 100 videos and I made, I think it was like 12,000. And then the fourth year I made 100 videos and I did like 30,000. And I was like, okay, you know, it's getting bigger continuously and the amount that it's jumping is getting bigger as well. And then I had the Gary Vee shout out event, like the first thing where it was like he was doing the Ask Gary Vee live stream, and I got on there because he was talking about the 2017 flip challenge. When the 2017 flip challenge came out, I had always wanted to like pay Gary back, you know, somehow, and like shake the man's hand and to be like, dude, thank you. You changed my life. I would have never started YouTube, or certainly not so soon, without your advice. And I was thinking a whole other way, which was not the way. Gary he has the most insane superpower ever. He can look at a marketplace and just understand how to hack it. Like, and he knows where the attention's at, no matter like what year it is or how the platform is or whatever. He will always know. That's his superpower. And when he started doing the 2017 flip challenge, I was like, oh, here it is. Like, I know more about this than he does. He used to do this, still not ever to make a living, you know what I mean, just for fun and as a hobby on the side. But I actually do this, and you know, I can provide value to him, to his audience. And so I was just like focused on that. I had notifications turned on for Gary on any platform, and I commented on his live stream like, hey, I did 650,000 selling used books in 2015 or 2016, whatever it was.
Wasn't that your intro for a while? I remember that clip.
Yeah, it was. And so I posted it. He didn't say anything. And then I waited for him to get closer to the screen, like in a lull where he's looking for a comment to say something to respond to. And then I was like, bam, put it out there. He got the classic reaction. I screen recorded it. I asked him if I could use it as an intro, and he said yes. And that was like our first actual interaction. And I'm not going to lie, that thing probably helped convert for sure. Like, imagine the video comes on your YouTube feed for whatever reason, and then it starts, and that's the first thing you see. That's kind of like a cosign. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Gary said this guy's killing it. Maybe I should watch this video. You know what I mean? And so, you know, like as well as I do with educational content, it's boring for the most part. It might be the best, most valuable video you ever made, but it's boring to people who, even to people who need to learn that stuff. So you have to have the front part of the video, the hook, the first thing you say, the thumbnail, the title, everything has to work to essentially, it's sad, but trick people into watching a greatly valuable educational video, just because everyone's getting pulled apart in 100 million directions by, you know, basically AI that's made specifically just to screw up your psychology and keep you distracted, like each one of us on a one-to-one basis. So it's a hard battle. And so anything you can do to get that, you know, and that definitely helped. And I ran that maybe for a year or two until I got self-conscious. And then I was like, I'll take it off. It seems kind of weird now. Like maybe I'm too thirsty. I don't know. You know, then there was a few different shout outs from Gary Vee over different times. And for the longest time, he didn't know how to say my name properly. He called me Reezy Resells, which is super funny because when I finally made it on his show on Pod Sessions with Erica Nardini and Alex Benayan, I called him out. And it was a setup because he was like, by the way, Reezy, did it make you mad that I said your name wrong? And I was like, no, bro, you said you were a horrible student. So I understand it. Like, I understand why the man, you know what I mean, can't see two long E's followed by one consonant and know that it's Reezy, not Rez. It would have to be two Z's, Gary, and one E to be Reezy, right? So I don't blame him for that because he always said he was a poor student. So, you know, that was cool. And then being on his show, you know, was a goal of mine, and that I had stated like long time before it ever happened, like I'm going to be on his show, watch. And then I got him on my show for episode 100 of my podcast, which was super incredible. We recorded it in his office, obviously, because he's Gary Vee and he doesn't go anywhere.
Is that one of those things that you're probably like most proud of from building the audience and all that?
I think so, because it's not like it was an accident. It was fully planned. It was like something I wanted to make happen, and I made it happen, almost like a project, I guess.
Again, it's the theme, right? Creating that luck, being there, answering the comments. Like, exactly.
And then I got to ask him all the questions that I always wanted to ask him. And I'm an avid Gary Vee fan. I watch all his interviews and all his keynotes. I don't watch or consume all his content, but keynotes and interviews for sure. Because if someone asks him one question out of the 20 they ask him that they've never asked him before, you know, who knows what the hell this guy's going to say. It might be one of the most insightful things ever. But as a fan, I know what he's been asked. And I'm sure a lot of people know, like when you see an interview with someone you know and like really well, and they just get asked the same questions they've been asked a million times, it's super annoying. Like the person didn't do any homework or wasting their time, you know what I mean? And so the questions that I asked him were questions he'd never been asked that I've always wanted to hear him answer to. And I was pretty proud with the result. It went well. I'm not gonna lie, that definitely helped to boost stuff and to give you a cosign or whatever, but it's a lot less than most people think. You know what I mean? Like everyone thinks you get a shout out from Mr. Beast, you know, you might get 1,000 subscribers, maybe 10,000, but guess what? They don't really care about you. And if you don't do your job after that, they're not going to keep showing up. And so, you know, the reality of the luck or the boost from, you know, getting a shout out or whatever, none of that matters if you're not laying the groundwork and putting in 100 videos a year. You know what I mean? At this point, I'm over 700 videos, over 500 long form videos, 700 total videos, including shorts or whatever. So it's not an accident. You know what I mean? mean? And I tell people, like, if you're trying to do YouTube and you're like, oh, it's not working, how many videos have you done? 12, 22, 35? Like, do 100 videos before you decide to even say it's not working. You know what I mean? If you've really tried and you've made 100, 150 videos, maybe you need to really examine something and see, you know, why it's not working or whatever. But everyone wants to be a YouTuber. No one wants to put in 100 videos a year for 4 years to be actually become a YouTuber.
The same goes for Amazon, right? Like in those early days, you're at the Goodwill bin, you know, scanning the books. Like you gotta put in the reps, and you're putting in all that work, making the YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. And that's what it takes to, you know, create the lot. You know, that's awesome. So back into some Amazon type stuff, and we can kind of start wrapping up a little bit. You know, going maybe even tying it into social media a little bit. Would you recommend that, you know, those new sellers, maybe they started selling 6 months ago, a year ago, should they, you know, go and start making that personal network, in your opinion, having, you know, making a couple of videos, that kind of thing?
I don't necessarily know about trying to be like a YouTuber, but nowadays social media is definitely the currency, and that's like your business card. So whether or not you're trying to become a guru or whatever, you should certainly brand yourself in your niche, and you can document your stuff from a personal perspective along the way. I know Gary says document, don't create, but the reality of that is that in the long term, if you don't actually become successful, no one's ever going to give a crap.
Sure.
So don't expect people to go watch the journey of, you know, someone doing something that might potentially become nothing, because that is really boring and long. It only becomes interesting later once you realize, like, wow, that person made it. You know what I mean? I can't believe they're like eating top ramen in this episode. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. They eat like golden eggs now. Golden eggs. But I do believe that there is, you know, a definite opportunity to provide value, especially considering that there's new platforms all the time. Like, look, TikTok was brand new just a little while ago. Like, no one listened to me when I was telling them to get on Musical.ly. Nobody. I have those videos on my channel. You know what I mean? Don't make me pull them up. And now TikTok blew up, and, you know, people made a lot of money on TikTok. Now the money's not as good on TikTok, but still you're getting a lot of leads, a lot of eyeballs, you know what I mean? And there's lots of people who crush it on TikTok or Reels and don't do YouTube. You know what I mean? There's people that are making 10 grand a month just doing Twitter, where Twitter is amazing because you can post 1,000 times a day and no one cares. It's like a soundboard. One hits, cool. That's an idea. Maybe I like to just screenshot my tweets and then put them on Instagram or use them as ideas for making videos. But I do think you can certainly build a network and increase your own profitability by, you know, being a beacon of light that makes you more visible. And also, when you help other people trust you more. Even people who don't need your help. They're like, oh, I seen that guy. He's dropping gems. He's helping people. I want to associate myself with him, versus just a really selfish person who's doing nothing. So don't think you're going to just come out of the gate and start charging people money, because people aren't stupid. And if that's your goal, it's not going to work. Like Gary Vee says, jab, 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 right hook. And what he doesn't say is, I think that a jab is a year, 3 years of providing valuable content. And then the 4th year, you've earned the ability to right hook. So by the time you've put in 3 years of consistent value, if you want to drop a book or a course or whatever, no one's going to say shit. That's 4 years in the making. No one can deny you your flowers at that point. You know what I mean? But you have to actually provide value. And if you want to answer questions and help people out, those are all ideas for content anyways. So why not make at least short videos to answer questions, right? Then you have an arsenal of things to reply to people when they come at you. But I mean, for example, when I started doing social media and started getting a little bit more attention, people who were already doing millions a year, more than I ever did on Amazon, would hit me up and be like, people who don't need my help but respect me. And they're like, hey, why don't you sell Nikes? And I'm like, wait, you could sell Nikes on Amazon?
Exactly.
Like, I didn't know. I wasn't a shopper on Amazon. You know what I mean? It wasn't like now where everyone buys everything off Amazon. I feel like Amazon was just a weird website back then. You know what I mean? And I didn't really understand it. And so then I started selling Nikes. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't sell DVDs and CDs? And I'm like, wait, what? You can sell CDs and DVDs? Like, yeah, you don't know about disc refurbishing machines and doing case swaps? And I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I learned about Amazon to Amazon flips. Like, I was mostly looking them at books, but then I realized, like, oh, this random vacuum cleaner that's normally $300, Amazon has it for $150 for today. You can buy 10 of them, send them back to Amazon and sell them for $290, $10 less when they put the price back to $300. And you can even use Keepa to watch for these things, you know, and I'm like, wow, I'm learning so much, you know. Then it gets to the point where, which one should I focus on? Because you'll get nothing done if you don't know what you're going to do.
Shiny
but
object syndrome.
Exactly. But yeah, you should definitely brand yourself. And, you know, pro tip, don't put like like resells in your name. Don't put thrifting in your name. Make your name actually memorable. You know, Fields of Profit, I like it. It's original. No one else is doing that. I'm not confused with anybody else. The only one that's remotely similar is Rake and Profit, and you're not going to confuse those two at all, right? So definitely value in branding yourself out in just the networking. But you might find that like you got a knack for social media. You like it. You got the warm feeling. You know what I mean? You want to do more of it. And I think that's important because I think if you don't at least enjoy helping others, it's going to make it very hard for you to struggle through those 100 videos a year for $1,800 or $5,000, because the reality is you could make a lot more money doing something else. And I wasn't doing 100 videos a year until I got lucky and broke my foot skateboarding. That's like another luck situation, right? When I broke my foot and I had to have my team go and do my routes without me every day, which I thought wasn't a possibility. Like I had thought about it and I'm like, yeah, that'll never work. They'll never work as hard as me, which is true, but they'll work 70% as hard and they'll go every single day if you pay them. You know what I mean? And that's a hell of a lot better than you going every day because you can figure out other things to do. So that's when I really started hammering down on social media. Yeah, there's so much opportunity, guys. Like, get on the damn internet. If you don't make money on the internet, what the hell is wrong with you?
Exactly. Everybody watching needs a good lecture on that sometimes.
Shake them. Just shaking adult syndrome. Just shake the hell out of them. Like, what is wrong with you?
Exactly. Yeah, and I like that. Like, really, it's the network is the massive value, and I've seen it so many times with, you know, guys coming in the community. They're doing pretty decent on Amazon. They start, you know, just posting a picture of their boxes and like, hey, I'm buying stuff from Walmart today. Like, you know, just documenting the journey like you're talking about. And then you get those like-minded people coming together and like you're talking about, like, hey, you can sell Nikes. Like that type of stuff is just so valuable. And that's why like I'm always talking about it. People who are big fans of the channel probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but networking is so important.
One of the hugest tips that I could give anybody is develop, you know, those 1, 2, 5, 10 mini networks, which are like people that live around you, people that you talk to a lot on certain places. Make group messages with like 3 people, 5 people, and you'll be surprised how much money you will make out of that, because when you're in a smaller private group, there's more trust and people are more willing to share. So I can say, hey, look what I found. Boom. Then they can go get it. And then they'll be like, damn, thanks, Reezy. Look what I found. Boom. Then you can go get it. And people are not going to post these things in larger groups with hundreds of thousands of people, because the reality is most people are just greedy. And so they will take it and they will not come back and give back to the community. But I think that that's also to do with like a larger group. Maybe those same people who are like not sharing and greedy people would be more sharing in a smaller group, but they don't, you know what I mean? It's almost not worth it to share because you think no one else is going to share. And so then why share in a group of even, you know, 100 people, let alone 1,000 or 10,000 or publicly, you know, like when I see people sharing bolos publicly, I'm like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? You just blew that deal. You completely just blew that deal. And not only for yourself, but also for the other resellers who have put in the work. You know what I mean? You're not the only person selling that. And so that's why I tell people like, hey, I'm not going to give you fish. I want to teach you how to fish. If I give you fish, you'll never learn how to fish. And also I'm taking fish from the other people that are already actively fishing, which is not good for the community. You know what I mean? So like, but when you have these little groups and you can help each other out, you know, whether it's the local group to be like, oh, hey, you know, and you know how when you're local, you have your territories, like, hey, Tom gets these Walmarts, Reezy gets these Walmarts, and you kind of have like a little mutual, you know, frenemy type thing going on. You got to keep the cupboards bare. So if like you wake up and you're super sick and you can't go and you know all the panini is going to drop at the Walmart that you go to now, you know, that you have good relations with, you call Tom up or DM him in the group, hey, Tom, I need you to hit up my Walmarts today. And he can get the profit or whatever, but it's valuable for you to keep the cupboard bare, to have someone go and clean that out for you. You know what I mean? And there's just so much stuff that you can gain from having these little networks, and they cost you nothing. They cost you nothing. You know what I mean? You're going to be with 3 or 4 trustworthy people. You'll be making mistakes together and you'll be leveling up together. So definitely look out for those mini networks.
Yep, I love it.
Do you hear that cha-ching?
You
just got a cha-ching. I just sold a t-shirt on Merch by Amazon.
That's awesome. How much are you still doing a lot of merch?
I do around 250 to 700 in payouts a month, and I haven't touched it for 2 years. So that specific sale was like $3.50 payout. But when you sell 20, you know, to 40 of them a day, that adds up. And you're not, you know, you do the work once. A lot of people don't talk about print on demand in our little Amazon niche. And I think it's probably better than selling books, and it's repeatable. You make a design, can sell infinity times. You have an asset, you have a design, you could sell it later. You could sell your catalog of designs. Like, look, I haven't touched my store in 2 years and it still makes me at least like
That's awesome.
500 average a
That's like
month.
it's like the closest to passive you'll get in Amazon world there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can, it's laptop lifestyle stuff.
Yeah. So just to wrap us up, for that guy or girl there, they're trying to make their first sale. They made $1,000 in sales. What advice do you have for that Amazon seller? What should they go to take action and really start to take off?
Well, you've made 1,000 in sales. Congratulations. I might to assume you only have $1,000 as well.
Yeah, just what would you do if you got a little bit of money, you're trying to figure it out,
My advice would be to be a thrift army knife. And by that, I mean that if you're selling books or if you don't have a ton of money, I just think most people should sell used and should also sell on different platforms, not just Amazon. Like you sell on eBay, sell on Poshmark, sell the items on whatever platform it makes sense to sell them on, right? But when you're at the thrift store getting the books, learn how to look at the ceramic, learn how to look at the cups, learn how to look at the clothing, learn how to identify that those are handmade Italian leather boots and you can get them for $15 and sell them for $80. You know what I mean? Stay on top of the looking at free stuff on Facebook or Craigslist or Free Cycle. Just the other day, my good friend Mike, Trash to Cash Glass, he found a stock car stereo for free for like a Honda Civic or something on Facebook Marketplace, and then he flipped it for $400 on eBay. It sold the same day, and it was free. And he found that just sitting on his couch looking at free stuff like he always does. But when you're starting, you need to learn as much as you can. You need to make as much as you can, but you want to risk as little as possible because you're gonna make mistakes. You need to make those mistakes. That's how you learn with skin in the game. But you can kind of bootstrap and make them for as cheap as possible. But if you want to grow quickly, you got to still pay attention to like what are those hot RA items and OA items that I can get. And you have to balance your capital between your buying, because if you buying a lot of stuff's cool, but if you have no money to spend and you're just waiting for it to sell, you screwed up. Either you need to buy more conservatively, you need to price more aggressively, or you just need to be passing on more stuff, right? Because you're focusing on turning stuff over. So often when I tell people is like, hey, take it slow, do the used route where it's like $1 to $10 is much more common, 10 to 100, but don't neglect those quick fast flips that are like really hot RA or OA items, or like it's very easy to, try to get every popular sneaker drop that comes out and then just flip that on StockX. You might only get one pair a week. If you have 2 phones in your house or 3 or 4, you might get more lucky and be able to repeat that more often. But it's really about monitoring your capital, focusing on turning it over as much as possible, and then just trying to keep, staying the course and growing your business. As soon as you can afford to purchase education and your time becomes like, when you have no money, you have time. So learn for free. Watch YouTube videos on 2x, 1.5x, listen to it on your headphones while you're driving, while you're working out, you know what I mean? Whatever it is. But once your time starts to be, demanded of you and you have some money, you can pay to accelerate your knowledge with a consultation through buying a course. The good thing about buying a course is most of them are like refundable, pretty easy. You can get a refund from a guru when you buy a digital product and it doesn't work out. I'm not saying buy them and get a refund. I genuinely think the average person who buys something and gets value is not going to think like that.
There's some people who have told me that they were going to try to scam me and then realized it was worth the value and stayed in. Yeah.
Now who's getting scammed?
Yeah.
But yeah, bootstrap, take it step by step, focus on those fast flip opportunities while having the bread and butter stuff. A lot of people don't understand, like, yeah, sure, this flip is going to look good on Instagram, or these are great to put in a YouTube video, but usually the bread and butter stuff is not sexy. It's like identifying that, oh, these light bulbs are pennied out on Walmart.com, and this 6-pack of light bulbs makes me $28 and they're only a penny, and I'm flying all over America, going to every Walmart I can, buying all of these light bulbs and paying people to go get them and ship them to my FBA account for me. Like, that's the bread and butter. That's how this shit works. Like, healthy 40% profits from RA and OA, those are like, you're not building your business on that. You know what I mean? It's the bread and butter items, but the home runs come along, and when they do, you need to hit them out of the park. When the patio heaters come along, or the chlorine, or whatever it is, drop everything. That's a all hands needed emergency situation. Don't sleep for those 3 months, because it will be gone at some point. You know what I mean? Like your child that grew up and doesn't want to give you a hug anymore, right? So pay attention to those opportunities. But the things that are going to make you successful and make you pass the 2-year full-time selling mark, which I think is where, if you've been in the game 2 years, you'll probably probably be in the game for 5 years. If you've been in the game 5 years, you'll probably be in the game for 10 years. It's going to be those unsexy base hits. Just continuously just hit those base hits. But at the same time, when it becomes accessible for you, don't forget to scale up either with knowledge, with volume, hiring help, all of these things. You'll know when it's time, but just don't let that bootstrap mentality that you need to have in the beginning stop you from scaling your business when it becomes time for you. Like, dude, there's a lot of people that make so much money on Amazon, but they're still shipping packages. And I'm like, dude, why are you shipping packages? You don't think you could have someone else do that for like 15 bucks an hour, 10 bucks an hour, and then you could find more profit or spend more time with your family or whatever it is? Like, just don't get caught up in the bootstrapping, right? But it is necessary, one foot in front of the other. Don't listen to your friends and family. Everybody all the normies that have a 9 to 5 are going to talk mad shit. Don't listen to them. You know what I mean? Because by the time they forgot when you used to work a 9 to 5, you're going to be doing it. You'll be happy. You know what I mean? And you don't have to make $1 million to become super happy with this online selling stuff. You might be 10 times happier making $50,000 a year working for yourself on Amazon than you were making $100,000 a year working for someone you hated and not being in control of your schedule. Like, being in control of your own time is worth 50 or 100 grand a year, if not more. Yeah. It actually has no ceiling to how much it's worth. It's dependent on how you execute on it, right? So, but I can tell you, when you work 8 hours a day and you sleep 8 hours a day, there's only 8 hours left and they're not your best 8. So it becomes very hard to scale out. And props to everybody that has successfully quit their job from working a 9 to 5, because that's hard. You know, I know people that made 6 figures and quit for reselling, people that made more, you know, 200,000 a year. I'm thankful I never made that much, because I don't know if I would have ever left.
It made it hard, yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
You get comfortable. Yeah, that's awesome. That's some really good nuggets there at the end. So all you guys, appreciate you guys sticking around towards the end of the video. Appreciate you hopping on the channel as well, Reezy. If people want to follow you, obviously we'll put the links down below, but where can they find you?
ReezyResells.com. Grab my free intro to Amazon course. I also started a Spanish channel, Reezy Espanol, and a podcast channel. So I'm doing the podcast live streams. Again, I did one last night actually on the main channel, but then I take it down and then edit it and put it over onto the podcast channel. I want to get a second channel with the silver plaque. We need to get 2 silver plaques before we get the Millie plaque for the main channel. That would look real nice. Subscribe, help a brother out. Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah, go check those out. That's awesome. Really appreciate you hopping on the channel, Reezy. Honestly, it's an honor. Like I said, watching you in from my dorm room, like trying to, how do I not punch a time clock through college? Watch one of your videos, and here we are.
It's not 1910, baby. We got options.
Yep. Here's to continuing to make our own luck and getting those at-bats, right? So really appreciate all you guys watching this video. If you guys did get value out of this video, please feel free to subscribe. Go check out Reezy's content as well.
Smash the like button.
Absolutely. And let us know if you have any questions, comments, anything like that. You can drop those down below as well. Really appreciate you guys watching this video, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.